Yes.
Okay, call meeting to order. This meeting of May 27th, 12:50 for the meeting. Start over, okay.
Practice run.
Good afternoon, this is the committee of adjustment meeting for Sullivan Township, Tuesday, May 27th at 12:50 in our council chambers. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please to be advised that meetings that are not and recorded and made available on the internet. Calling the meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general interest there? Thank you. If one does come up, please state so. That's fine. No deputations or invited persons at this point? No. Good. All right, we'll do three from the meeting today.
Thank you, Chair. The Committee of Adjustment holding a public hearing in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act in order to consider two applications for consent today for relief from bylaw 2009-021 being the comprehensive zoning bylaw of the Township of Selwyn. Prescribed notice of public hearing was provided via first-class mail to all residents within a 60-meter radius of the property subject to the applications, as well as by a sign posted on the subject lands. The notices are also available on the township's website. The notice circulation complies with the requirements of the plan. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the committee of adjustment of the Township of Selwyn, but does not make oral submissions of a public hearing or make written submissions to the committee of adjustment before the committee gives or refuses to give approval to the application, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public hearing or make written submissions to the committee of adjustment of the Township of Selwyn in respect to the proposed variances before the committee gives or refuses to give approvals to the application. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the committee adjustment, you must make written request to the secretary treasurer of the committee of adjustment, providing your name and address or email address. The first application today is A06-25. This is for 4028 Stony Lake Mainland. The project is a roughly 52 square meter sunroom addition to an existing dwelling. The relief being requested is to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 14.69 meters to the sunroom addition. We have comments of no concern from the Conservation Authority, County Public Works, and the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. ORCA is stating that permits will be required at building permit stage from them. This is a condition of the draft approval for the application. I do find that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance. I do recommend the application be approved. In this case, there is no archaeological assessment condition of the approval, as the entire property is pretty much a granite outcrop location along the shores of Stony Lake. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Per. The representative, Adam Leggett, is here to represent the applicant. Mr. Leggett, anything you want to add to the application today?
No, only I was going to point out the structure is on solid bedrock, so there's no real excavation or anything like that, and pretty minimal impact to the site. But Per's already sort of covered that base, so I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of the application?
We have no one here virtually to speak in regards to this application.
Sorry, I missed the first part.
Sorry, there's no one here virtually to speak in opposition
As
or
well.
in support of this application. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody here to speak in opposition to the application? No. Any comments, questions from members of committee? Having seen none, thank you. We'll move to the file 0725.
Thank you, Chair. So the next application is for 49 Clementi. This is in Lakefield. This is for a garage addition of let's see here. Yeah, the total new footprint area of the proposed garage is 114 square meters, or roughly 1,200 square feet. The Relief being requested is to increase the permitted accessory structure lot coverage from 7.5% to 9.3%. Again, we have comments of no concern from the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority, the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, and County Public Works. I do find this application as well meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. And I do recommend the application for approval. In this case, an archaeological assessment appears to be warranted due to proximity to the Otonabee River. Those are my comments with regard to this application.
Thank you, Terry. Mr. Welford, you want to add anything to the application or?
I don't think so.
You're good?
Something you need to know or?
No, we just
Okay.
offer the opportunity for you to support it or whatever. I'm assuming there's nobody in the audience that's going to oppose the recommendation. Anybody online that is opposing or supporting?
We have no one here virtually.
Thank you. All right. Any comments from members of the committee or questions? Having seen them, thank you. We will move the motion. We move the motion now or yes, right away. Okay. We'll move the motion to accept support both applications. Who's going to move? Thank you. Member Kulis. Member Voico. All in favor? It's carried. There are no, you're good. Is that quick?
More money, but.
Yeah, just write a check.
Thank you.
There are no deferred matters and new business for committee. There are no correspondence. No new information. Minutes of the meeting of April 22nd were circulated prior to the meeting. Move the minutes, member Boyko, member Henry. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. And next meeting is June 24th, the motion to adjourn. Member Henry, member Kulis, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Done. All right, thank you. Welcome everybody to the Township of Selwyn regular council meeting dated Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 at 1 p.m. in the council chambers. I read the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care of and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. I'd like to offer a moment of silence for reflection. Please observe a moment of silence so the council and staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on the duty of to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Notifications to the members of public, staff, presenters, and members of council. Please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and are made available on the internet. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature of? Seeing none, again, if it comes up during the meeting, please state so. The minutes of the meeting of May 13th were circulated prior to the meeting. Any additions, deletions, corrections? I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 13th, 2025. Councillor Boyko, Councillor Koulis, all in favor? Is there any discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none. We'll move to deputations or invited persons, and today we have a staff introductions, Kira Fielders, Deputy Treasurer, and I think Lane here to do that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm pleased to introduce to Council Kira. She's the newest member of our financial services team. Kira joined earlier in May as Deputy Treasurer. She comes to Solon with a good cross-section of financial experience from the private sector, and then most recently as Deputy Treasurer at a member municipality in the county of Peterborough. Kira's work experience involves problem solving and troubleshooting, and these skills are something that we need in our department for sure. As we're faced with various challenges. So as she assumes this important role in our department, just here to provide Kira an opportunity to meet council.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Getting my feedback and.
Fantastic. Really happy to have you here, and we've got a great team to work with. Lots of experience there across the table, so hopefully that will work well for everyone. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to question period. 15 minutes, one question per person at a time on a rotating basis. Is anybody asked to represent the question?
No questions.
No questions today. Thank you. All right, we'll move to item 4, which is municipal officers and staff reports for direction. Lane has got a number of files here to go through.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, and this is a joint report with Adam and myself. I'll go through some of the financial matters, and if there's any questions, Adam and I'll work through that. So this is for Department 30, Lakefield Sewer, 31, Lakefield Water, and 35, Water and Sewer Equipment. As council is aware, we're in our second year of managing the in-house operation of the water and sewer utility. Took over from Peterborough Utilities last July. So this budget's based on a number of last year's actuals, but still basically finding our way with some of the allocations of labor, trying to figure out the best method of doing that. And last year there was a lot of training that was involved with the crew that was on site. So a lot of that went to some general wage accounts. So Adam and I have spent some time going through that, but it's still a work in progress a little bit. Still a good healthy amount of capital projects coming forward this year. We have had other years that are heavier, but still a good selection of capital that's there. As council may recall, we had not increased any rates last year, given the fact that it was a transition year. We didn't think that would send the right message as well. And we wanted the year to kind of work through and see where things worked out. We haven't actually increased rates since July of the year prior. But it's proposed this year that we would increase our rates by 1% in July, and that July billing cycle would just allow us to keep abreast of some of the inflationary pressures that we are facing across the departments. Just as a reminder, our monthly water and sewer amount is a little over $119 a month. So 1% increase on that's about $1.19, so 4 cents a day. In 2025, the increase to the ratepayers in Lakefield would be $7.14. There's lots of narratives, lots of capital background, but maybe I'll just leave it there at this point in time and see if council has any questions for Adam or I.
Yeah, thank you, Lane. Questions from members of council? We could break them out individually if there's questions, or no?
Thank you. Through you, sorry, I'm used to saying Mayor Sentence, through you, Deputy Mayor Black. So the question I have is predicated on the idea that the water and sewer rates, everybody in Lakefield knows that it's user pay. But also just about everybody in Lakefield wishes it was lower. It can't be lower. This is just what it costs. You divide it up and that's what it is. And $119 a month for some people is not a lot of money. For other people, it's a lot. And I realize that we're only talking about a little bit of an increase, but I don't like to increase anything if it's unnecessary. So I went back and forth this morning with Lane about this, and what we're talking about, this 1% increase is $24,000, 24,430. So do we really need this $24,000 when we look at the operating budget of I'll call it 3.9 million. If you look at water and sewer together, if I'm reading it correctly, is 3.9 million. But going into the reserves will be an additional $454,000. I'm rounding the numbers off, which means that our reserves that are now 7.9 million will be 8.3 million by the end of the year. And that is great. You have heard me over the last couple of years saying that healthy reserves are absolutely essential. But I'm wondering if those healthy reserves are healthy enough, given that if the water and sewer revenue and expenses added together is 3.9 million and our reserves are going to be 8.3 million, increase of nearly $500,000 this year, do we really need another $24,000? I say that knowing that it's only $1.99 per month, but I hate to raise any rates unless they're absolutely necessary. So I wonder if Lane or Adam, I don't know, if you could explain to me why why the small increase is necessary.
Okay, I'll deal a little bit with the reserve issue, and then I think Adam's got some information on rates and things like that. So yeah, reserves definitely they're I think I've said before to council, they have a bit of ebb and flow to them, right? So our reserves in water have been fairly consistent over the last number of years after we had our major plant upgrade and after we added our water or elevated tank to water tower. The sewer reserve, on the other hand, was down at a low of about $800,000 only 3 years ago. We had a number of expenditures. We had to do some major maintenance up at our lagoon. So it doesn't take a long time to go through those reserves for sure. So we're starting to build those back up again. As I've mentioned to council before, when the issue of reserves comes up, we always want to know what is the optimal number, right? And I haven't had a great answer for council because we really don't have our asset management plan together at this point in time. I do know that council has received some comfort from the auditors when they've presented to say that we're in good shape for our reserves, and that's a good thing. So with respect to the reserves, I guess that's my comment there. It's one of those ebbs and flows, and we continue to add to it. This happens to be one of those years where we're not pulling a lot out, but so that for that reason we have a positive number this year with respect to that. Maybe if Adam has did a bunch of work on rates and comparability rates and stuff like that, so that might be good information for council.
Through you, Mayor or Deputy Mayor. Yeah, we have done some rate comparisons over the last couple of years. So I mean, when you look at 1%, it is a nominal value to increase it by. Some of the neighboring townships like Norwood, for say, their fixed portion of their bill, they're increasing it, or they have increased it 12% over their 2024 rates. OSM approved a rate increase of 1.5% from 2022 to 2029. So I mean, really, to increase at 1% is a nominal value, but I mean, it's not uncommon in the water sewer industry, and our neighboring townships are all doing higher increases as well. So I mean, when you look at our rates being $119 for water sewer, understanding that may be not too much for some folks and is a little more to others. I mean, our rates in comparison to neighboring townships or comparable townships to our size are very close, or if not, we're in the lower end of those rates. So, I mean, we are a flat rate system, but it is a user pay system, but overall being a flat rate, that does kind of keep our costs lower without having meters and stuff in place as well. We're not maintaining them, we're not going through those capital expenses, putting them in. And when we look at, as Lane had said, the water reserves and the sewer reserves kind of ebb and flow depending on the projects we have each year. We do have some projects in the pipeline, George Street, We're looking at Burnham Street. We have some water plant upgrades. The dollar value in these projects is usually quite large, right? So, well, we might have $7 or $8 million in the bank right now. Once we start looking at water plant upgrades, like that will get eaten up very quickly. So any of these upgrades we look at for the future too, that maybe are also DC eligible later on, we do typically front end those costs. So we need to make sure we have money in reserves to be able to front end those costs without having to take loans out.
Thank you. So there are, reserves really at the end of the day are related really to future work and potential future work. And I think Adam has talked about some major projects that will come up. Any of the water main breaks and that sort of thing that we have today, they come out of a working reserve right now, right? They don't come out of the capital reserve.
That's correct. We typically put that in our operating budget, so we'll account for a couple water main breaks a year sort of thing, and we do have a dollar value on that. And I mean, depending on the extent of the water main break, Burnham Street's a good example. The water main break isn't always located exactly where it surfaces on the road, so sometimes you have to chase that. And so those costs then increase considerably with restoration work and then just time on the job site doing the repair.
Right, thank you. Just to identify the differentiation. Any other questions or comments from members of council? No, Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. Through you. I kind of have some follow-up questions. I just want to clarify your, Councillor Boyko, are you asking us to absorb that 24,000 for one more year? You're just pushing it back a year?
Am I? No, I was not asking for that. I was asking for clarification as to why it was necessary to increase the rates when we've got $454,715 going into our reserves. Is it necessary that we increase our rates by $24,000?
Okay. Follow up to that through you is, if we do push it back in, considering inflation, what could the rate look like next year? Is it going to be higher than 1%? I don't know who to ask that to.
Lane, through you.
Sure, yeah. To you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we've always kind of had that slow and steady approach to increases. And so we have had a few years of 0% in the water and sewer reserve, or sorry, the water and sewer utility. And yeah, how that really affects it is that all of a sudden we're going to have to play catch up at some point in time. The 1%, it's one of those things that it is affecting a small rate. So it doesn't bring us a lot, as Councillor Boyko pointed out. This year it's only about $25,000. But if that amount isn't there next year, then we have to make that up plus again.
And one follow-up question. We've talked about not setting a precedence in certain areas. So I feel like this sets a precedent. So maybe this is more of a comment than a question, but my inkling is to move forward because it is such a low percentage. And I mean, we've also already had one disaster this year with the ice storm. I'm really worried. I'm not hopefully not jinxing ourselves with this department, but like a whoopsie daisy or some kind of, disaster. While we might be financially sound with the reserves, I just worry that I hope we don't have to use those. And that may also impact the rate too moving forward. So I'll leave it there. My comment is basically, I don't think we should set a precedence with this 1%.
Councillor Henry, you had a comment? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Black. I've brought this up before, and I'm going to bring it up again. What are the pros and cons to having metered water? I know this is one of those touchy subjects, but I'm going to push the button. Someone explain it to me and break it down for me.
Sure. So I'll take a shot because I've answered this question a lot over the decades. Yeah, with a system like ours, we're a small system. So despite the fact that we have 3,000 users, that's relatively small in terms of water and sewer. And so because of that, we have to have all those same things that a large system would have. We have to have a plant, we've got to have some type of treatment process, got all the mains in the ground and everything like that. So the component of costs, which are more or less fixed, is large in comparison to what is variable. So variable would be the amount of chemicals we use. If we have to use our pumps more or the aerators more up at the lagoon, well, then we maybe consume some more hydro, but those amounts are relatively small. So when we look at the percentage of costs, which are fixed and need to be there 24/7, essentially, they're very high. And Adam and I have crunched those numbers a few times, in excess of 50% easily. And, you could get as high as 80% depending on what you're going to use. So when you start to look at a metered system, really what you're doing is metering consumption, which is you're metering the variable. So for it to work well, your basic charge in a metered system needs to be very high. So you could install meters, but your metered basic charge would be high. And the savings really just isn't there for the people. And then you have, I don't know, $1 million worth of assets, which are out in the field, which then need to be either calibrated or replaced periodically. And Adam and I were chatting about this. You get into some municipalities and think, well, a meter, it's going to be there for 15, 20 years. Well, we know of some municipalities that have replaced them within 10 years, right? So, yeah, so it doesn't kind of promote the savings that one might anticipate. It doesn't really bring a lot of equity to the system in terms of consumption because the base charge is already really high. And then you have these assets that you need to maintain out in the system. That would be, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add here.
Good.
Thank you, and follow up if I may.
Yep.
Has there ever been consideration given to having a higher bill rate for those that use more, that clearly use more, restaurants, food service, with grease, all the different chemicals that are being used? It's got to be that would put a bigger strain on our system. And those obviously use more water than an average household. Have we ever considered having two-tier residential versus commercial?
Yeah, in terms of the rate structure, we have had some general discussions on it. We do have some metered customers in our system, of large users. So the schools, the industry, some of the larger consumers do have meters, multi-res properties, things like that. But we have looked at different rate structures that would, for it to be successful, you'd need to do a full rate review with somebody like a consultant, like say our DC consultant, somebody like that. They've got a lot of experience doing that type of thing. But I know operationally Adam has some experience with that with respect to restaurants and things like that for sure. So I don't know if there's any other processes that we could outline besides a rate structure. I think really just metering some of the high users. And so we could take a little bit closer look at some of the existing, say, sectors. So you mentioned restaurants. We could look at that sector and see how many are actually on meters right now. Take a look at the ones that are on flat rate. Should that percentage be higher? Should it be unmetered? Those types of things. We do need to get to a rate review at some point in the next little while for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a couple of comments on my own. The council's through with questions. The meter thing, I've asked a lot of questions around meters as well, and from the sound of things, the replacement rate of the meters is significantly higher than was always initially budgeted for these projects, and it ends up being a bit of a wash as far as revenue and volumes and so on. So don't have an issue with looking at some businesses that are high users and adding them to the list of businesses that are metered. Couple of questions, Lane, just on the budget timing. At some point, will this budget be timed in with the rest of council budget?
Yes, through you. That's our goal. We'd always like to treat it at not the same meeting, but maybe even it could even be the same day. So we may want to deal with taxation in the morning and water and sewer in the afternoon, but definitely closer. Council can take some comfort in knowing that Adam and I look at capital projects and always try to marry those up. So, we're not going to present a road project to council and then not have had regard for water and sewer or storm sewer, things like that. But no, the timing of it and bringing it closer together, that's a goal of ours for sure.
Appreciate that. And again, just going back to reserves and so on, when you calculate the reserve expectation for this year, it represents 10% of the budget. Is that a normal, like, you must have if when you're developing these things, you must have something in mind as far as what percent you need to include in the reserve in the number to get the number that you want each year. Is that, how do you relate that back to what's happening today, what might happen tomorrow? What's your thought process around that percentage?
Yeah, it's definitely not a science at this point until we have the asset management plan completed. But we look at it in three buckets. You kind of your operational, capital, and then reserve contributions. And so we always used to look at it as more or less somewhere between 50, 25, 25, somewhere like that. So that's the goal that we were kind of looking at.
Great. I don't have any further questions. Members of council, we have a motion to accept the report from the manager of financial services. Councillor Coolidge, seconded. Councillor Henry, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, let's move on to consent items. I will pull item 5 and ask Ryden to give us an update on the disaster recovery assistance program. And news to council is that the province is going to accept some of the costs or reimburse some of the costs which they haven't in the past. So, Ryden, if you could talk about that and maybe give us an update on the recovery efforts and how much left to do and that sort of thing.
Sure. I'll maybe start with an update on the recovery efforts so far and transition into EMDRA after that. So largely the county and the lower tiers have transitioned from the response to the recovery phase of the emergency. This broadly means that our focus is now on kind of resuming normal operations and then long-term recovery efforts for those higher levels of damage that the ice storm caused. In terms of the township's recovery, our landfill brush drop-off is still remaining open and free for residents. We have not established a date to end that yet, but I suspect we'll probably correlate that to the submission deadline for the EMDRA application. Doing that would allow us to possibly recover some of those future wood chipping and brush chipping costs above what Triline's done. As I understand, they've done 2 rounds of brush chipping at the landfill so far just for storm-related debris that came in. The Parks and Recreation Department, they're continuing to remove storm debris from parks and trails. So far, they have addressed several areas, including portions of the Ennismore Waterfront Park, Paul J. English Park, Chemong Park, and the Lakefield Campground, also including the playground that was damaged at the Lakefield Campground. Signage prohibiting access to certain parks and trails is remaining in place. That's just because there's still outstanding storm debris that's posing a risk to public safety. But Parks and Recreation is removing that signage as those hazards are remediated from those areas. As I understand, they're going to be removing signage from several areas later this week once contractors are in there to remove tree damage. As far as the damage to the playground at the Lakefield Beach, the damaged portion has been removed. Parks and Recreation, along with Public Works, removed the rather large tree that fell there, and talks are underway with the township insurer to kind of inform future plans as how we're going to possibly replace either the damaged section or the whole playground as a whole. But for the time being, the junior play set that's in place has been approved for use throughout the summer season. As far as the Public Works Department, in keeping with normal operations for this time of the year and the long-term recovery efforts, they've more or less transitioned to capital projects and road sweeping. Understanding there's still some wood chipping that's outstanding on the roadsides in northern portions of the township. But we are actively looking at using contractors under the EMDRA application to possibly speed up that ahead of the fall time. I guess I'll transition right now to the EMDRA program. So when I gave the report to council last on April 8th, staff did not believe that we had hit that 3% threshold the EMDRA uses as one of their elements for activation. Following that April 8th council meeting, both the Premier and MPP Smith advised that affected municipalities could apply for EMDRA despite, possibly not meeting that 3% threshold. 3% is established at the township's own purpose taxation levy. So for us, that'd be about $375,000. And we just weren't confident at the time that we had hit that number. So since receiving news from the Premier's office and MPP Smith that we could still apply to EMDRA. We've received the EMDRA application package, as well as a deadline for submission of July 28th. That's 120 days from the onset of the emergency, which is specified in the EMDRA program itself. I will emphasize that eligible costs under the EMDRA are heavily nuanced. There is even some indiscrepancies between what's in the public document and what's in the ministry provided document. So what the township will or will not receive will be really dependent on our application and what EMDRA program staff determine to be eligible under a full review. So far, we feel that we're going to receive or will be eligible to receive compensation for storm-related equipment rentals, staff paid overtime immediately following the storm response, township equipment operating costs, storm-related to fire department calls for service, and storm-related contractor costs such as brush chipping and professional tree services. And lastly, if the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing EMDRA program determines that our application is eligible, we could receive up to 75% compensation through a grant for those costs. Again, it's built on a 75-25 basis. So the province would provide us with 75% and the township would still have to eat that 25% of eligible costs. Maybe I'll leave it there and just open up for questions if there are any.
Thanks for the update. Questions from members of council? Councilor Michael?
Thank you, and thank you through you, Deputy Mayor, for that good news. Funny, that's fantastic. I have a question, perhaps through you to Mike, but with respect to the opening of the Lakefield campground, were there problems with the opening, or because I know that it was especially hard hit. You were mentioning the playground equipment, so were all of the limbs and trees and everything able to be cleared so that they could be opened cleanly and on time?
Through you, Madam Deputy, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, 3 years to get used to it now. Sorry about that. No, there was no delay. It wasn't perfect. It was about a 2.5 week project of theirs, but we were able to hire Accurex, who were already on site, to do the work in between them doing their other jobs. So they did it on a time and material basis and really did an incredible job. Absolutely amazing. That delay certainly didn't help, but we did get open on May the 9th. And there's still grass to be grown and a few things like that. But other than that, everything was in place and ready to go.
Well, that's good because, and through you, Deputy Mayor, because anybody who walked through that area after the ice storm, it was especially hard hit. So thank you for that. Thank you for all involved.
Yeah.
Any questions? Councilor Henry?
Thank you through you, Deputy Mayor Black. With the application process to go through the EMDRA program, I'm just curious, you mentioned there's a number of nuances with it in the public one and the actual application. I'm sure you're qualified with doing it, but are we reaching out to resources or anyone that may be able to assist in making sure that we're able to get through this process relatively unscathed with, if we could just kind of put the odds in our favor?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. It really is on its face a straightforward application process. What the ministry provides is a rather long Excel spreadsheet broken down into the 9 eligible categories for compensation. And then what the municipality does is enters each of those eligible costs as a line item in there. Where it gets complex is ensuring that our contractors and our invoices actually specify that it's related to the emergency. So I was saying the nuances with costs. If you had Accurex, for instance, on site doing, work at the campground, and then all of a sudden they transition to doing work related to the storm recovery, in order to be considered eligible, the ministry would have to see on our invoices that Accurex was specifying that the work they were doing that day at that time was related to the storm. It's no different than employee overtime. We'd have to substantiate that the employee overtime is directly storm related, such as, equipment usage, et cetera. So it's just a large compilation of information. We have reached out to internal departments to ensure that department managers are composing documentation for that. I think what would be a part of a challenge will be that we did not know the nuances and documentation until after the storm actually occurred, and we already, having invoices made, employee timesheets, et cetera. So yeah, I don't think that reaching out to any other agencies are really going to help us. It's really just looking at our internal documentation and applying for what we have documentation on.
Thank you. Follow up through you, Deputy Mayor Black. Thank you for that. And good luck with getting that filled out. Sincerely. I did bring a motion forward a couple of weeks back regarding what the true cost of this is for us. And if there's discrepancies prior to getting the EMDRA program application going, and we're noticing there were some things that may not have been billed, I think, as you just said, how accurate would be the report that I'm requesting them be in the fall?
I don't think there's going to be a challenge for the township as a whole to kind of put together what our total cost is with this. It'll be what we can substantiate to the ministry based on their parameters for the EMDRA application. I think we'll know very clearly what our impact was financially. But I'll use it, for instance, like employee overtime as an example. We did not know going into this emergency that employee overtime that is banked and used at a later date is not eligible under EMDRA program applications. We can only recuperate cost that employees chose to have paid out. So I think we'll know as a whole what us as a township incurred related to this emergency, but what we can recoup under EMDRA will be based on their nuanced specifications. For instance, equipment usage. The province has a comprehensive list of equipment rates that we can charge back and recover 40% based on the provincial rate. That list does include generators, but it does include fixed site generators, for instance. So for us with generators, our operating costs for those generators and having them in place are going to be different than what we're going to recoup under EMDRA if the province deems it an eligible cost. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Thank you. Before we move on with consent items, I just want to go back to item 4 in the motion. There was a number of pieces to the motion. I took it up, but didn't refer to it when the motion was put forward, but it does. So the recommended motion that we voted on was the report related to the Lakeville Water and Sewer Budget 2025 be received. For information, the council adopt the budget compliance report for expenses excluded from the 2025 Lakeville Water and Sewer Budget as outlined in and as a requirement of Ontario Regulation 28409 and that Department number 30 Lakeville Sewer and Department number 31 Lakeville Water and Department 35 Water and Wastewater Equipment Budget 2025 be approved as presented, and that staff bring forward the requisite bylaws for council consideration at future council meeting to increase the water and sewer rates by 1% effective with the July 2025 billing cycle. So that was the motion that I should have read. I didn't. Just for clarification, that's what we voted on. Any concerns from council on that? Thank you. All right, so we'll move to the rest of the consent items. Any items on the balance of the consent items being pulled? No requests. Okay, so we will need a motion to receive the consent items. Do I need a separate motion for the president? No, we don't. So we can move them all. Thank you, Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So move to item 9, which is petitions. No petitions today. Unfinished business item is the AMO conference 2025 delegation request. The deadline is May the 30th. I'll open it up to council for Councillor Boyko.
Thank you. In preparing to say what I'm about to say, I've contacted and communicated with Mayor Senes, who is our council rep on the library board. I've communicated with Andy Mitchell, who is the chair of the library board. I've communicated with Sarah Hennessy, who is the CEO, chief librarian, and all are in support of this motion. In fact, Andy and Sarah are eager to help put together the delegation because they know things that I know I certainly don't with respect to library operations and needs. So I move that at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference in Ottawa this August, that Mayor Senes and Council present a delegation to the Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Gaming that our delegation explain the pressure on our citizens, staff, and volunteers in our libraries caused by the fact that provincial funding of municipal libraries, it's called the Provincial Library Operating Grant, has been frozen since 1995. That our delegation explain the importance of libraries to all communities, including Selwyn, and that since the province has frozen its funding for 30 years, municipal taxpayers are now providing over 90% of library costs, while forcing library staff and volunteers who should be devoting all of their time to programming, having instead to spend increasing numbers of hours fundraising. Further to this motion is that a letter be written to MPP Dave Smith seeking his support for our delegation for an increase in the provincial library operating grant now and for increases linked to the cost of living going forward. And that is my motion, Deputy Mayor.
Seconder for the motion. Councillor Henry, comments, discussion? Henry?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Black. I definitely support this motion. Obviously, this is something that we're going to have to do at every conference that we're able to attend because our voices haven't been heard as of yet. And we're going to have to keep fighting this fight to support our local libraries.
Councillor Henry, any other comments? Councillor Coles. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for this one. So let's move their move and seconded. Councillor Henry seconded, right? Right. Okay, all those in favor? It's carried. All right, thank you.
So
Councillor Coles.
ditto, but for the fire. Same as last year at AMO, we went and we chatted with the Solicitor General and it was a really great meeting. We thought it came up very positive and then nothing actually happened. So I would like to go and annoy them again. The main issue of concern is the meeting the 2026 and 2028 or to 2028 certification guidelines. It's expensive. It's a burden on us and our volunteers. So for one, it's monetary help is just non-existent. We would like to ask for that support once again. Especially in the face of inflation and us having to pay for other operational costs with vehicles and such, we definitely could seek the support. On the other hand, I've heard that communication with the college, the Ontario Fire College, is very challenging. So even if you have the means to get the courses and even if there are course instructors in place, having that communication and getting things in place has been a challenge. So I think we need to make them aware of that at the same time. So twofold, asking for money and identifying challenges with the communication with the college.
Thank you. Councillor Coles, a seconder for that motion. Councillor Boyko, any other comments? No, thank you for that. No, I agree 100%. We've got to keep at it for sure. It's unfortunate the province doesn't seem to have a priority in solving this very quickly. So I think we need to keep the pressure up for sure. So motions on the table. All those in favor? Thank you. It's approved. All right, any other new business announcements? Seeing none, we'll move to bylaws, number 11. Sorry, bylaw 2025 037. We don't have any of the bylaws, but our confirming bylaw today. Motion to bring back, Councillor Boyd, Councillor Henry, all those in favor. And finally, motion to adjourn. Councillor Henry, Councillor Boyko, all in favor. That's carried. Thanks, everyone.